Josh Bittick, welcome to the show.
Fantastic. See, there it is. It's all those kinks you got to get out, and then here we are. Now the show really can begin.
And we're all good to go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome to Assemble Show here on Twitch for our podcast twice a week, twitch.tv/Assemble Show. And I'm very, very excited because tonight, I actually have my guest, my friend, Josh Bittick, is joining us from the Up and Comer podcast. Josh, how are you?
Matt, I am wonderful. Thank you so much for sending the invite. When you asked me if I could be on the show, I was like, of course. And I've been so excited since we talked about it. I've been like checking my phone, like, hey, when do I get to be on? And today's the day.
I'm so glad you agreed to come on my nonsense show and listen to whatever the heck we're going to talk about. I do want to be able to preface by saying, I've talked to some of the people that have been online so far that are on the chat as well. And, kind of you've given myself as well as some other people a lot of their big breaks because your platform, your podcast is really awesome. It's allowed for very small content creators, people that are just starting out on the platform, to actually get their voices heard by a larger audience, who are kind of funny best friends alike, who, are just getting their feet wet. And when it was my turn, we talked about this on your show, but you approached me with my 70 odd subscribers and said, Matt, be a guest on the show. And I was like, Josh, no.
And I'm like, I wasn't prepared for that. Okay.
And then he bailed and he was like, great, let's talk again later. And then, sure enough, he said, we're ready to go. And we tried this thing again as it got a little bit bigger. But I've always appreciated that you've taken the time to, help other content creators small to get their feet off the ground, to get some exposure as well online. It's a hard thing to get started. And yeah, I think it's just a really great platform that you've created. So talk to me, since you are always the one that asks everyone else the questions, but if you can enlighten us, how did it start for you from your journey as a kind of funny best friend? What was your introduction to the entire platform? And then we'll get into a little bit about podcasting as well. So what was your your introduction to Kind of Funny?
So my introduction for Kind of Funny was actually through Rooster Teeth to begin with. So obviously, like, I had known Greg Miller, followed IGN, as many people who have been on my show say. I was aware of who he was, but it was one RTX I was at with a couple of buddies. They were there from day one when everyone had left IGN and they started Kind of Funny full time. And it was back when I haven't been to RTX in a while, so I don't know how the signing goes.
Right.
But for us, it was the first year they implemented the ticket system for signing. So you could get a ticket. That way you were assured autographs. You didn't have to worry. It was helping to run things a little bit more smoothly. So we got our ticket for Kind of Funny. And it was super cool. We went there and I got something signed. I can't remember. I think it was like my badge or something like that. And a small side story it was actually funny because Aaron Porter, he was their guardian that year. He was their PA. And I was actually a big fan of Aaron Porter. Aaron is phenomenal. If you don't know, he is currently an editor at Achievement Hunter, does phenomenal work. I cannot recommend seeing everything he does. He does his own stream sometime. A wonderful, wonderful human being. But when I'm meeting Kind of Funny for the first time, Aaron was actually there. And I was like, hey guys, like, would it be okay if I also got a picture with Aaron? Like, that would be really, really cool to me. So my first time meeting Kind of Funny, I got my picture with the gang and then also got my picture with Aaron Porter. It was phenomenal.
Very cool.
Yeah. And then we went to like the meetup and I got to meet more best friends and kind of from there, like, started listening to the podcast. And then it kind of snowballed into the fandom that it is currently.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's great too, because with a platform like Kind of Funny, everybody seems to have their own story, whether it is like, I was at meet and greets, I was at Kind of Funny Live. It's just the podcast. It's from beyond. But we all have different stories and different experiences, which is really great. And that's what I've always enjoyed about the platform is, and the community, obviously, which is, I think, spearheaded a lot of us to take a shot at whether it be podcasts or just content creation in general, or us wanting to be able to get on camera or do some production work. For yourself, Josh, what started the podcast? You have the Up and Comer podcast on multiple platforms, and you can plug as much as you want on the show because it's my show. So you do everything you need to do. But what was the inception of the Up and Comer podcast? Because it's a wonderful idea and it's just positive. Like, it's a great, great show idea. So what was the inception? What was the idea behind all of it?
So we're going to go on a little bit of a journey. So buckle up if you're ready. I've always been doing content creation in some form or another. When I was younger, I was doing like stage plays and musicals and the whole 9 yards. And then after high school, I was like, hey, I think it was my drama instructor was like, hey, I think you'd be really good at broadcasting. And for me, I know my dad went to Central Michigan, which is where I went to, for broadcasting and radio and journalism. So to me, that just kind of made sense. I'm like, hey, that's what I'll do. That'll be the next transition point, and I'll kind of find my way there. Now, through this time, that's kind of when I was really getting into kind of funny and the podcasting scene, and really like I fell in love with that kind of content, that personal connection with not only the person who's on camera or on the mic, but also the audience that they cultivate, and those people just kind of coming together for, at least with Kind of Funny's instance, most of the time, overwhelming positivity.
Right.
And I fell in love with that. So at college, I did many different shows for the college TV station. And my favorite part of the ones I did, and it kind of the through line throughout them all, was sitting down and interviewing someone. I love talking to people. I love talking, whether it's because I like to hear the sound of my own voice or just because like one of my favorite things is to make people happy and smile. So I felt like I could really do that by getting to talk to someone, making sure they felt listened to, and everyone has stories to share. And in interviews, I felt like I could get that out of people. So I had done that, and then I graduated college, and I didn't really have an outlet for my creative juices anymore, right? Like I didn't have the access to the equipment. So I felt like my content was going to be inferior because I struggled with the aspect of like, I know how to make this stuff that good.
Right.
I have made like, I've been in a production house. I've done all that stuff, but because I couldn't do it on my own or because I only had my phone, it just felt inferior. Like I was beating myself up about it. So I went for, I don't know, maybe a year and a half, 2 years after I had graduated college, and I didn't really make anything.
Wow.
And I was just kind of feeling empty a bit, like at the time I was working at a deli, and I wasn't really doing anything I cared about or was interested in. I was just kind of making money to pay bills as best I could. And I think it was around the January 5th stream where people started to put in their like Kind of Funny up and comer, what were like the reels, right? Like I think it was Matt Batson, who's been on the show. You should check out his episode. He's fantastic. He was the first one to do it. He had the Macho Man kind of Randy Savage announcer voice, all the different clips, like what he had done. That was really cool. And then I also remember Corey Cudney coming out and doing his thing. And Corey is fantastic. Yeah. Again, also been on the show. Can't recommend seeing anything Corey's done. If you have used a Kind of Funny GIF, GIF Master General Corey Cudney. And at that point I realized like here are a couple of people who are big names in the community who have a ton of experience. And I think because Blessing got hired from the up and comer opportunity last time, granted, that wasn't the entire reason. He's very talented, made okay beast, yada, yada.
He's okay. Did you see, but just to pause for a second, did you guys, whether Josh or in the chat, did you guys see Kind of Funny's video today where they were doing the bit on Blessing in the PlayStation?
On hiding his PSN trophies.
PSN trophies. I watched the thing at lunch. It was the funniest thing ever. Sorry.
So funny.
But yeah,
I love this new like little like phone call prank things.
Me too. But Blessing's lying. We all know that.
He's hiding something.
Coward. Anyways, continue. Sorry.
No, you're fine. But no, so I knew that more and more people were talking about wanting to be the next up and comer. And I sat down and I realized like there are so many people out there. Excuse me. So many people out there who are passionate or want to do this, but may not have a platform like a Corey Cudney, right? Like Corey has made a name for himself. He's kind of well known. So I wanted to try to sit down and be able to give everyone kind of their own platform, their own pedestal, and even the playing field a little bit.
Yep.
I think, kind of like you said, it's really hard for someone to sit down and just talk about themselves for an hour or explain their entire life story just to a camera. You know what I mean? Yep. If whether you're not used to talking to a lens, whether you're just kind of shy or, you just don't really know what to say. I wanted to take it upon myself, feeling that like I'm really good at interviewing and talking to people, to be able to get that out of them, right? If I sit down with you, Matt, much like we did for your episode, and I ask you questions about yourself, it takes out that awkwardness of like just sitting down talking to a lens on why you should be the up and comer or why people should watch your content. So for me, if I can make that barrier smaller, and for anyone, I think a great example is, I got a beep in my ears. I think a great example for me is Jordan Deeb, right? Jordan
Yeah.
D was the first episode of the podcast. It was awesome. It like kickstarted everything. But at the time, he hadn't really done anything, right? Like he was doing his student work and he really wanted to get into it. But now he's got Waypoint, right? Which is fantastic. And it's so cool to see like that growth that he made. So for me to be able to give him that opportunity to kind of speak and feel more comfortable and get his name out there, I think helped in a way. So if I can give that to anyone, how like it doesn't even matter if it's for the up and comer opportunity, right? Even
Yeah.
if you're just an up and comer trying to, find your footing in content creation, if I can get one or two more people to kind of see you, or at least have you feel more comfortable, I will have considered myself a success.
And that's really, Josh, to be honest with you, that's what I really love about the show is that it is one, it's giving people that opportunity. It's a little bit more exposure. It's a positive environment atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
You go into the show as a guest, knowing that, and even as a listener, you're going to get just a good experience out of it. You're hearing people's stories, and your ability to craft and navigate through all of this. It shows just how much experience you have within the world of audio, as well as podcasting and hosting. So you always do such a great job with leading the charge with that. And again, it's a positive place for new creators, content creators who, again, like I said earlier, maybe they are trying their footing at, hey, we have a podcast, we're just starting up for the first time, or we're not comfortable talking to the lens and we're trying to get used to all these things. It's great to be able to give people that chance, because I think starting off, and again, even just speaking for myself, and I know other people down there on the community right now, we create content, we do a podcast, they might be just starting off with like one show a week, one thing on YouTube a week, and they get a couple of views, and we're all experiencing that right now.
Right.
To be able to have someone like you come out basically representing Kind of Funny for us, and to be able to say, hey, do you want to come on the show? Do you want to be able to have a guest spot on there? It's hugely uplifting, and it's motivating. It's kind of like, it's wow, someone is paying attention to what I'm doing, to what I'm creating. And it's not that it's always just about, look at me and I want people to watch and see my thing, but ultimately you're creating content. You're trying to create something out of what is your niche, your art, whatever it is you are trying to create. You were trying to share it. So because you're sharing it with, and somebody reaches out and reaches back and says, hey, would you like to be on my show? And it does that pay it forward mentality, which I really, really like. Josh, when you've gone on now, how many episodes have you done roughly now?
Oh, I don't know. I know the podcast in its lifespan is coming up on a year, because I think the first episode was like February 20 something, or
Okay.
just I know it was in February. So we're coming up on a year. It hasn't been, I've missed a couple weeks for various reasons. So it's not like at a solid 52, but it's up there.
It's awesome. What do you find right now? Just kind of shift gears a little bit, because you've gone from, understanding kind of the foundation of all of this. Where I have questions for later, but where, what do you feel about the medium right now for podcasting in general? Because I wanted to be able to shift away, because I love being able to have different guests on and not always just talk about gaming, as fun as it is. But I love learning about different things when it comes to how the industry is moving. Podcasting right now as a genre, as a medium, has grown exponentially, even in the last, I'm honestly going to say within 5 years, less than 5 years.
Oh, 100%.
Like it's completely exploded to the point where it's like, hey, if you have a YouTube, you have a podcast, you have, if you're not doing it, you're kind of missing out, obviously, because you have such a far reach and all of that. But kind of broad strokes at the moment, how do you find the industry? Because you've come from such a strong background, your education, everything was within audio and the arts. How do you feel about podcasting as a genre, and where do you think that this medium is going or should go in the next 5 years?
I definitely think podcasting currently is the most accessible, I think, form of content creation out there right now. Right. When I had a handful of like little podcasts I did with friends, way back when. And one of the big, like limiting factors for us was like trying to figure out things like an RSS feed, or like how to get everything all like on the back end set up, right? And like, do I need to have my own server? How do I house all my files? Like, where do I put all this? But right now with places like Anchor, for example, it is so simple. Like anyone, right? Like everyone's always said anyone can record a podcast on your phone, but even now with something like Anchor, where you can just record one natively in the app on your phone and then post it, and they take care of all like the back end stuff.
Yep.
Even to the point where, and I know this is going to sound like an ad for Anchor, that's just because it's the one I have the most experience with, slash only experience with. But they'll like have you do ad reads, right? So if I wanted to, maybe like the one I'm practicing right now, in the middle of the podcast, I could throw in an ad read for Anchor if I don't have some sort of sponsor lined up. And per X many listens, you get so many dollars and whatever.
And can you use Anchor?
More like so many pennies and stuff.
Is Anchor then, so help me out, is Anchor then on all podcast platforms, or is it just through Anchor itself with the RSS feed?
So like, Anchor puts your stuff on all platforms. Right?
Oh, okay.
So like if you went right now to Anchor and looked up the Up and Comer podcast or Josh Bittick, the show would come up. It would then also show you everywhere else you could access the show. So thanks to Anchor, wink, I was able to get on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, all of that stuff when I wouldn't have been able to really do that on my own without really, really knowing like the nitty gritty and the back end on it.
So that actually, sorry, with that was one of my problems a while ago. Kind of like a lot of us, it was, well, I'm going to start a podcast with my buddies, and I was handling the back end stuff of trying to get it on different services, and it was like I had to go through the applications for Apple, and then look at the Android podcast lineup for all of their platforms, and Spotify as well, to even look at that. And I was like, this is a lot just in itself of just trying to get this on something.
Mm-hmm. And it can be really intimidating, especially if you're not really sure where to go. Granted, there are videos to help out and things, but sometimes it's just so overwhelming. It's just so much information. And then compare that with like not really having experience doing content or trying to edit for the first time. It can be just a huge turnoff. So now that there are like smoother ways to get into podcasting, I think it's like I said earlier, I think it's the strongest it's ever been. As for where it's going to be in 5 years, I'm not 100% sure, because like beforehand, I would have told you that like having those live shows, right, would have been the next big thing. And then we're in a global pandemic where you can't do that, which subsequently has made podcasting almost that much more needed in a way, right? Because that's almost your closest thing to personal connection you have with people. So maybe in 5 years, there will be VR podcasts, right? Where you can sit down on set with someone and watch the show that way, maybe to where it becomes more talk showy, or at least more like engaging.
More engaged. You're like you're literally there with them.
Right. That you're there
the other
like
chair.
A live
you're
audience.
The third chair.
So I could see that happening, but I don't know. I was just saying, I couldn't see the pandemic coming in. So who knows what would happen in 5 years?
And I think that's where we've seen, I know for reading up on like Twitch analytics and kind of on the news side of that, when it comes to Twitch specifically, their numbers for broadcasters and people that are going and streaming on the platform, like absolutely skyrocketed as soon as the pandemic hit, obviously, because people are like, I got nothing to do. I've got time. I lost my job. I'm furloughed. I'm whatever. I'm going to try this. It was a lot of try a hobby. That's kind of my inception too, was, all right, got time. Let's give it a shot. And I think it's very much the same case right now with podcasts, where we're seeing this massive spike completely north. I wonder, do you think that it's going to taper off and we're going to kind of get a new level set? Do you think it's going to kind of stick with its high momentum? Because it can get really hard, much like any type of content platform, to get through all of it to find something. Do you think that it's going to kind of level itself out?
I wouldn't be surprised if we see it level out when people aren't stuck at home as much, but I also think that things are just so drastically different from what they were a year ago.
Yeah. That
maybe a lot of people have fallen in love, like everyone had to get a webcam when they were working from home. Everyone had to, like, some people got a nice microphone, and maybe it became their hidden passion, right? I don't know, maybe I say this because it was always one of my hidden like dreams, right? Everyone deep down wants to be a disc jockey, right? Like everyone likes the announcer or the movie voice guy. Like everyone wants to do that. We all have our impression of that. And maybe this was a huge eye opener for people. I wouldn't be surprised that the general public it tapers down with, like at least in the instance of creating podcasts, but I don't think it's going to slow down, right? Like I think you're always going to see, everyone always has passion, right? Everyone's got passions about something. And now that it's so easy, like go talk about your passions. I think people have found that it's just so so therapeutic in a way, right? Like even if just like two buddies sat down and like, hey, we're watching, I don't know, you see it with In Review, right? They're watching the Karate Kid movies right now.
Yep.
If someone was to go about that, everyone has that friend who they just bicker with back and forth about why this movie is great or why it isn't. So you see it all the time. I think, I don't know, I feel like I'm talking in circles.
No.
Like I like the sound of my own voice if you can't tell. No, I mean, I think you'll see a gradual decline, right? But that just maybe because, everyone is doing it because it's the one thing you can do in your house.
So with the medium too, Josh, what formats do you find works for podcasts? Because you have, again, like you've been surrounding the industry itself and on the audio and the technical side. What kind of formats do you enjoy? And what do you find that really works out there for people? So even if it's people that are going to start a podcast, I know yours personally range on the upcomer. I mean, I've tuned in episodes are 50 minutes. I mean, it depends on how the guests are and how much time we have to give and all these other things. So sometimes like your shows are 50 minutes, an hour and a half. Like,
yeah,
I know it just totally varies, but what do you find is kind of a sweet spot when it comes to, let's start with podcasts specifically. What do you think a listener can handle? What do you think that is kind of best suited for it?
I feel like an hour has kind of been the baseline, right? Like I feel like everyone, when you're getting into podcasts, you expect it to be at least an hour long. Now, for myself, when I was first getting into it, as I was kind of feeling how I was doing as an interviewer, how to talk to my guests, an hour can also be intimidating. So it doesn't have to be an hour, right? Like if you can get a nice tight 30 minutes and you feel comfortable with that, awesome. Do that as many times as you want. And if you want to expand, maybe give it a shot. For me, I have found that I just kind of let the flow of the conversation go, right?
Yeah.
Like if I have enough questions, that can fill up more time and I feel like the conversation's going really well and the guest has a lot of energy, maybe I go for like an hour and a half, right? But I usually feel like a nice tight hour gives the guest enough time to talk and really learn about themselves. They don't feel too burnt out. And I also don't feel like I'm stretching things, like stretching questions or answers that don't really need to be there,
For sure.
Like I don't want to add too much filler or fluff.
Do you find with streaming platforms too, because like I think of Kind of Funny where we've seen the evolution of it over time, where I think of Game Over Greggy where they went from YouTube specifically, where they took the show format from 4 episodes, right? They took the whole podcast and then they cut it into segments for our YouTube. Right. And then the whole podcast was either on Patreon or it was just shoved over to podcast services as a whole. Do you think that style, because maybe I'm just asking for tips for a guy I know.
No, of course.
But even just in general, like, do you find that format can work where you have more of a split up content to kind of go episode 1, 2, 3, 4? It's technically it's the entire thing. It's you and I talking for an hour or whatever, but maybe we split this into 4 chunks. And the reason I asked that is because I thought of this earlier. Joe Rogan is like one of my favorites. And I think for a lot of people with his 6 million listeners and so on. But Joe has done it other than when he's moved over to Spotify, where before on his platform, it was like, you can go in and get bite-sized clips. I could watch his interview with Kevin Hart and he's got a 12-minute segment. He's got the whole 3 hours, but he's split it all up. Do you find those formats can work a lot more nowadays? Or do you think that the tried and true format of a 2 hour, 1 hour, whatever the podcast is, like, do you think that is the best route to go?
I think it depends on your channel and your audience personally. I feel a lot of people are going towards that longer form content for listening purposes, right? Yeah. Whether it's just that they're at work and they need something to kind of fill up the day, or, they're at home and they just kind of want to fill the silence. I think that plays a big factor into it. Though as a content creator, it can be easier for you to split it up, right? Because then you get the most out of the content. It's going to be a lot easier. And I'm sure, knowing how busy you are all the time, you can attest to this. If you and I were to sit down and talk for 2 hours, right? But you were able to split that up into 4 or 5 different chunks and then distribute that over a week or 2 or 3 weeks, it gives you more content and it gives you more fuel, right? So you have something in case you need to throw it out there. With a podcast specifically, like if it's one consistent conversation, I would keep it up in one chunk. But like you said, Joe Rogan had different segments. If your show is segmented, then you could split it up over a week and have a week's worth of content out of like one day of filming, right?
And that's where I see is it can be helpful for some content creators, whether people are watching this or check it out later, but it's I think if you looked at your content and realize, and it did work in a flow of, I have a hour podcast or 2 hours with our guests. There's maybe 2 or 3 of us, whatever. And we definitely try to hit these specific topics. Like, let's just say gaming, and we want to talk about 3 games. Yeah, I look at it going, I'd rather post 3 episodes and maybe the whole thing later at a later point to kind of maximize my audience. Jacob's saying too, and Jacob, I'm wearing your Bush League Gaming shirt. Sir, where are my sweatpants? I asked Jacob from Bush League Gaming that I want Bush League sweatpants, and he hasn't made them yet, so I'm mad at him. But Jacob asks, like, personally, I see super long podcasts and I'm less likely to finish them. How come with some I mean, maybe it's just based on the creator, the content itself, but how come some content, like some people, they see an hour show or 2 hours or 2 hours and 20 minutes and they just go, oh, and a video format on YouTube, people spend hours, like they just go, like they lose time, but they lose it. Why do you think that there is a difference? And maybe even vice versa. I'm asking a lot of questions here, but like, I'm curious with just streaming and the platforms that we have. And do you think it's mood dependent too? Like, how come when Jacob can go and look at, maybe there is a podcast that is showing up on his phone and it's an hour and a half, he's going, maybe it's just time driven that he doesn't have the time for his commute or whatever. But why is this such a turnoff in some circumstances? And then maybe tomorrow Jacob turns around and goes, I'm ready to go.
I think it's really situational. For myself, like if a big example is when I think it was Batman versus Superman. That was for Kind of Funny in Review. I think it was like 4 hours long, I think.
Because Greg redid the whole
movie and added
the whole movie.
So like I see 4 hours and I'm like, let's fucking go. Like I am so excited because you know it's going to get crazier and crazier as time goes on, right? And I think some of that's because I know the Kind of Funny group, right? And I like I said, I know that 1, it's Batman versus Superman. 2, it's Greg Miller giving the recap, and I'm all about it. 3, he's going to get progressively more and more drunk, which is going to make the story more and more enjoyable. So I see that and I get super juiced. I also, I work at a desk in which I can listen to podcasts a little bit longer. I also sometimes will I'll listen to the podcast and then I go back through and watch it because you pick up on, it's a different experience. You pick up on things, visual cues you might not have got, jokes hit a little bit harder. But on the other side, I can also see oh man, I don't have 4 hours in my day to listen to this. And I don't want to listen to this over the course of a week or like you said, like the commute thing, like if your commute is 45 minutes, but this podcast is 2.5 hours or an hour and a half, maybe you can't get it in. You want to get it in all in one listening. And then, on your point about like live streams and stuff, live stream is very much like it's the appointment viewing, right? Like you have, or not appointment, you have to be there when it's on. And that can be hard for some people, right? Like they might not want to watch at 9 o'clock all the way until midnight or however long someone's streaming. And I think that becomes a little bit of what you want to give your attention to, right? I know myself, there are times when I'm not huge into watching streams. Right. Sometimes because I like when I'm watching stuff, it to be a little bit more bite-sized so I can kind of get that nice conclusion really quickly. Or hey, I'm going to sit down for 15 minutes. Let me put on a Funhouse video because I know it's going to be 12 to 15 minutes. Yep. And then I'm going to move on to my next thing. So I think each person is different, which I know is kind of like a cop-out answer.
No, not at all.
I also think it just kind of depends on your lifestyle, what fits best for you, right?
We see so much content too going from, in conjunction with traditional podcasts on platforms and just doing the audio format, and now so much video. Like for myself with this show, it's the inception idea is just simply, I'll stream it on Twitch because I want to be able. So many people from the community are just on Twitch. And I go on there. I'm like, well, it kind of makes sense that I broadcast on there and then I can upload it later to YouTube. And then maybe, that's the best of both worlds for people to be able to get access to it. When it comes to video format though, and video podcasts especially, I guess I'll use Joe Rogan as an example right now again, only because Joe's podcasts that his partnership with Spotify, he now has a full video uploaded to Spotify. So, and obviously the whole thing is on his YouTube channel, but no longer is people are getting access to the clips, which to me is a big indicator of where the industry might be headed. Because I know that for YouTube streaming, for your YouTube Ultimate Pass, whatever, you can get no ads, you can minimize it and have the little tile in the corner.
Right.
And for me, even dabbling within that, I'm going, oh, I'm actually watching the video of the podcast itself and enjoying it that way. So, Josh, do you think that one thing that might, because if I'm looking at a crystal ball, I'm kind of looking at like, hey, do you think one of these things that's really going to take off is where like Joe is going, for example, which is we have it on the traditional podcast service with Spotify, and normally people are not getting the video, but now they're clicking on and they're getting the full video format. Do you think that that's something that more people need to explore? Do you think that that's going to be just kind of the way that we are going to end up, which is, the video and the audio, just, I mean, obviously just all of it coming together? Or do you think that more people will still want their traditional, keep it separate?
I think from a content creation standpoint, it is the best for you because it diversifies your content as much, right? Like you saying you stream it live, then you put it back up on YouTube, and then there's also like podcast links, right? So you're hitting all of those targets anyways without really adding a whole lot of work to yourself, right?
Right.
And you can hit 3 different groups of people. You can hit the people who love to tune in live and have like the engagement with the chat. You can hit the people who want to view it whenever they can, and then you can hit the audio listeners. So I think that's really smart, and I think that's crucial for people like yourself who are trying to grow as fast as they can, and cultivate that audience because you can get them in multiple locations. I think the idea of being able to like listen to a podcast, click it, and then just start it is fantastic. I know for myself, I'm a Patreon supporter of Kinda Funny. So I listen primarily most of the shows through like the Patreon RSS feed. So I don't have to listen to the ads and everything, and I get the bonus content and yada, yada. But the fact that like Kevin Barrett, Cool Greg, whoever is putting the link of the YouTube video right there has been great for me, because there'll be times like I'm listening to the Kinda Funny podcast at work, and when I get home, I actually want to watch it because it sounds like they're talking about something interesting, or like I don't want to move and I just want to sit on the couch. So I'm totally cool with having this on in the background. To be able to click that link and then go right to the video and then just scrub wherever I need it to be, that's really cool. And I think that for me has increased my watching of the podcast because it's so simple. So I don't have to like go and find it or only watch the video version with ads. Like I can just boom, pick up exactly where I left off, and I'm golden.
I was thinking kind of the same thing, that's where I think the industry is going to start to really push really quickly, because as quick as, I mean, everything moves very quickly nowadays. I think to me, that is the next biggest move within the medium, within content creation as well. It's there, but I don't feel that people are taking advantage of it just yet, because I don't think it's that easy. Right now, I'm doing what you're doing, and I do exactly the same thing, which is if I had a commute and I pull up my Kinda Funny podcast or the Up and Comer podcast, where can I find those podcast services?
Well, you can find those podcasts on any place you find your podcast, on Apple Podcast, on Anchor, on Spotify, anywhere you listen to podcasts, whether big or small.
My God.
You can find the Up and Comer podcast with Josh Bittick.
Incredible. But I do listen to the Up and Comer podcast, and I will be having it on my commute. But if I'm listening to like Kinda Funny podcast and they have the video format as well, and it's all out already, 45 minutes, it's an hour and a half long podcast. I will have 45 minutes in the car. And same as you, like you just said, come home, veg out on the couch, and I will scrub and match them up and go, oh, I was 45 minutes on my Spotify, and then I scrub on YouTube, and then I line them up and I go. I just think that the next step of all of this is where, Kinda Funny as an example, they're almost there, where it's just have that video embedded on Spotify, for example, and then I'm just gonna, I could AirPlay it right now, but to have it all just in one, you know what I mean? Where we're not splitting hairs, and then people have the ability to just switch device to device, and there's not even that extra little step of, well, let me put on my TV, because I think for a lot of us, we are so knee deep into all of this. We can manage all this, but if I told my parents, if I told the average Joe, here's how you're going to go from this or this, they probably wouldn't know. They go, no, I have my iPhone and they got the podcast app and there's 5 things because my buddy's recommended and I'm listening to that and that's the end of it. And that's how I consume audio podcast content versus I think you and I, people in the community, we're like, no, I'll go and I'll walk in the house and I'll go on my computer or whatever and I'll AirPlay it and I'll stream the thing here, and I've got my laptop going on my lap and I'm watching TV and I've got this going, and it's command central, right? Where do you think, Josh, that we're gonna head with? Like I'm thinking of like one of the things I wanted to bring up with you is a lot of the content creation, and are we hitting kind of a plateau with with content? I mean, there's always going to be more and more content to be able to produce, to watch, listen. Everyone has their interests, but I guess my kind of question is like, do you think that there is a saturation level that we're hitting, and what could be the next thing that we would look at in the next couple of years? Like, where are we going to be in 20 years when we have all of this has become standard? And like you said, people are grabbing their webcams, they're bringing them home for the first times, and now everyone is online.
Right.
And I don't think that is changing even post-pandemic. I think it's a whole new world, as they say in Aladdin.
No,
but where do you
agree.
think that, what do you envision? What do you think is going to be going on in 10, 20 years? I know these are all these far-shooting questions, but like, what do you think is going to happen with content creation?
I think there can definitely be saturation, right? Because there's only a handful of ways that people can talk about video games. You know what I mean? Like a guy with black rim glasses and a neck beard and hair slicked back to the side. There's only, we're a dime a dozen. And, like I said, there's only so many ways. And realistically, like even the Up and Comer podcast, right, is not that far different than We Have Cool Friends, and even closer to Best Friends Talk Funny, which was hosted by the wonderful Kyle Stevenson, who is just a sweetheart and a man with the biggest heart in the whole wide world. Shout out to Kyle. I love giving him love, especially since he doesn't like it. But no, so like, I don't, there's always going to be someone who comes and does something new. I think in the realm of podcasting, there aren't, at least in the gaming field, right, the nerdy tech field, I don't think there's a whole lot of new things coming out. And maybe that's just because it works, right? Like everyone finds their audience, because at the end of the day, the content isn't the actual like Marvel movies, the video games or whatever. It's the personalities, and that's what you're listening to. That's what you fall in love with. You fall in love with that connection. At the end of the day, like there, as many white guys with beards and glasses who have opinions about video games, there is only one Josh Bittick. So I'm the only person who's going to be able to radiate my energy, right? And if you're on board with that and you connect with that, that's golden. That's what you're going to be here for. And then I just happen to, have an awesome guest on that maybe you fall in love with as well. So from that aspect, I think the saturation is there for sure, but I also think that everyone is going to be drawn towards a host or a personality for their own reasons. So there is that. The 20 years thing is fascinating because when my dad went to school, the internet wasn't a thing. You know what I mean? Like not nearly the way it is now. Like, so right now my dad like builds websites and runs like web-based infrastructure. That's his job. And when he went to school and graduated in whenever he graduated in, he got a degree in reporting, right? And he was a journalist. Now, you know what I mean? Like the internet couldn't be a thing. So it's kind of like how kids now, they being a content creator is something they want to be when they grow up, or a TikTok star or whatever. And I say that knowing I'm an old ass man and I don't understand TikTok all the time.
Are you ticking and talking, Josh?
I'm just like a clock. I tick and I talk.
Okay, good. So am I. I do not go on the TikTok.
But
too much.
Everything changes so much. It's just so hard to say. Because I think about that right now, even with my own content creating, right? Like it's something I try to take into perspective. So like when I was graduated and I was like, well, I'm not doing content creation. I'm not doing what I went to school for, like thinking I was a failure or not going to succeed, or like this was just my lot in life. I tried to remember that there could be a new technology or a new thing in 5 years that just radicalizes everything, or is something that I really connect with, fall in love with, and becomes the next best thing. It could become the next podcasting, whatever it is. So I always try to keep that in perspective because I don't know what it is, but I know it's going to be out there, right? Whether I think podcasting may be around forever, who knows? Like radio is still a thing, which is surprising to a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's slowly evolved into podcasting. I think podcasting will slowly evolve into the next thing. I just don't know what it is, but I am super excited to find out.
Al says in the chat, is not going to lie, I think the people who started streaming for fun have petered out. So talking more about during like the beginning of the pandemic, they haven't gotten they haven't gotten serious by now. I've noticed a lot of people I used to follow on Twitch have stopped streaming by now, who have started because of the pandemic. And things nowadays just seem a bit quieter during the day than they did back in May or June. And Al, I do agree. I think
Mhm.
that things were like in pandemonium because everyone had something to talk about,
Right.
because we're all inside, we had nothing to do. So I think everyone grabbed a camera, a microphone, and tried it and
Mhm.
tried it out. And on that note too, Al and Josh, with content creators, why do you think that it doesn't stick? Why do you think that getting on the topic of like the actual content creation, the process, so many people trying it during the pandemic, because they say, I'll give it a shot. I'll try streaming on Twitch. I'll try a podcast or something on YouTube. What do you think it really comes back to? Because everyone has, you said this, everyone has the ability to do it. Anybody can turn on a camera or not, or just put on audio and record. And like you've said, people in the chat have said, like, go on Anchor, free podcast. Why do you think that it doesn't land for so many people, or they feel like, oh, there's no point?
I think it's their success metric, right? I think this, when you look at it from the outside, it doesn't look like a whole lot of work, right? Like it looks like, okay, you press record, you upload it, you're good. And it's when you really get into it, and if you're serious about it, that's when you realize like it is a ton of work,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a ton of work for not a lot of, you know, recognition or reward or satisfaction per se. Like for me, when I edit a podcast, I sit down and I try to time everything up as best I can. And then I listen to the entire show. One, for quality assurance for myself to make sure that, you know, something in right dab in the middle didn't cut out or towards the end didn't cut out.
Yep.
But two, also, I do my best to cut out any awkward pauses or, you know, internet delays, or maybe a guest, you know, was uncomfortable about a certain part or was stuttering a bunch. I try my best to make my guest sound as good as humanly possible. And there are times when you look back at the timeline and it's like, oh, you can't even see anything because I've made so many cuts and moved stuff around and changed so many things. And there's times when like a 1 hour podcast will take like 2 to 3 hours to edit, right? And it's not until you do it over and over and over again and start to get a repetition for it and get your, you know, you're kind of like your muscle memory and what to do, that it speeds up. And with that said, like I do a ton of work into the podcast and I pour my heart and soul into it. And I average about 20 listens. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I got lucky with Rumble Pack and Al Bob, and those were like 75 and 85. Shout out to Al, having Greg Miller listen to his episode, and it was the first ever podcast. So pretty big shoes to fill for that guy. But if I was to just look at the numbers game, right, I would be intimidated by other people who are doing better than me or thinking I am a failure or not successful because I put in all this work and I make no money at it. I spend money on it and I don't get that return back that I think I should have. But for me, I look at it as like, hey, did that person have a good time? Were they excited? Did they get something out of this? So that's what my success metric is. And because of that, I will keep doing this podcast until I'm not able to anymore, because I know how much it means to people. I mean, you yourself said it, like sometimes this could be, yeah, well, I guess like look at Al Bob, right? It was his first podcast. And now again, also someone who's on Waypoint doing podcasts all the time, who has fallen in love with it. If I can be that person's first step, I have done my job. So for that aspect, that's why I do all the hard work. That's why I plan. That's why I go in to do this. But if someone's coming in like, oh, I want to be the next like kind of funny IGN or David Dobrik, right? I say him because I know his videos get hundreds of thousands of millions of views or billions or whatever. Big numbers, big numbers, eyeballs, watch. But it like you think you just like turn on a camera and do it, but it's not that, right? And when you're not seeing that instant gratification, I think it'd be like, oh, well, I'm just gonna not put in all this work, or I'm gonna just sit and play games, or I'm gonna do anything else that I want to do with my time. And in that aspect, it makes sense, right?
I think that's probably what you kind of nailed it too, is what are people trying to get out of it? Is it a monetary gain?
Right.
Is it something where you're looking at it like, I want to get a podcast because I want to get money. I want to be able to make money or have revenue out of it. And that's a result of the work and the amount of work you do and the effort put in and all the grind. Shout out to the grind on the Waypoint podcast. But I think, like you said it's, well, I didn't make any money off of this, or I'm chipping away at the audience. It's very small. Hey, this should be, at thousands of, why isn't this at thousands of views? How come that guy has 2,000 views on his YouTube or his podcast, and mine is way better or sounds better or whatever? And I'm not getting that.
Doing the same thing.
Yeah. And you know what? You can boil it down to, of like, this podcast did a topic on cyberpunk, and they same beats, same all of this stuff, maybe around the same set. Why does this one do better than the next? And I think I think a lot of it really starts to boil down to what people perceive as and view as like, what's their metrics for that success? So what's the barometer, thermometer, and how are they doing it? Is it hot or cold? But to your point, like for you, it's, hey, I gave someone an opportunity. You enjoy the process. And that's what I always get from you, is you enjoy going through the process of podcasting, of going through the audio and going through and dissecting and splitting up. It can be therapeutic. In some regards, I find that myself, where I can sit here and edit a video, and it might take 20 minutes, it might take 2 hours to whittle this thing down from, what is just a 10-minute video, but it's sitting there and doing all this cuts and stuff. I wonder if so many people may be new at it, or just people in general, they're just coming at it from the wrong angle, whereas you're coming at it from the side of, hey, I can give a little bit of a voice and a boost to somebody that is looking to then blossom and go into something else. And we'll use Al as our prime target. That Al starts off with going on the podcast, finds he enjoys it, wants to be able to do more, and is starting to roll. I think that one of the things is, how do people measure it, right?
Right.
And how much emphasis they put on the wrong piece, in that trying to get sponsorship, trying to get affiliate, trying to get all of these things. What are your thoughts on all of the different programs that are out there with, and I don't know how strong your background is with like Twitch and streaming and all of that, but you seem like a smart guy. Josh,
I like to
you're so smart. I want to know what you think, man. Put on your funny hat. What do you think about the different programs that are out there to try and drive behavior? And I'm looking at Twitch specifically. Twitch has like the affiliate program, and they have the partnership and all of the partner program. And so many people we know are on Twitch. We are on Twitch right now, and they are beyond excited when they hit affiliate status. They are striving for partner. What I've wondered myself personally is, why are you striving for partner, for affiliate? I think that they're amazing accomplishments. I'm not taking away anything from any creator that is trying to do that as a goal. I'm just wondering, why are you doing it? I just want to poke at your brain of, why are you trying to get to this threshold? Why are you trying to get to partner? Why do you think, Josh, people are going through this? Because on Twitch, they take so much percentage out of your audience, your viewers, and ad revenue, and so on.
I think it's that validation, right? And granted, this is coming from someone who does not stream, right? It's never clicked for me, so this is all just kind of what I'm kind of inferring based off what I've seen, right? So I think the affiliate program is awesome. Granted, like I don't know about the back end of how much Twitch is taking versus you keep, yada yada yada. I think it's really, really cool because it's an attainable goal, right?
Yeah.
Like it is that first step to feeling like a legitimate streamer, feeling like you're achieving that dream of like being able to stream full time without like having to do some astronomical high unattainable goals, right? And then it makes, the path to partner a little bit more challenging. But if you've made affiliate, if you've studied consistent and have found that, hey, this path to affiliate has given me what I've wanted, shown me how much work this is going to be, and I still want to keep going. I think those people who then work and make that path to partnership, it becomes more real, right? Having received the affiliate status, what it takes. If I keep doing this, keep growing, keep improving, maybe I can become partner, and then maybe I can start actually doing this for full time, right? I think that's a lot of the people's goals, is everyone wants to be creating full time.
Yeah.
And it seems like being a Twitch partner allows you to do that, or at least affords you opportunities that make that more plausible, right? And then, you know, like you had mentioned with Twitch taking a percentage of, you know, the viewers, bits, the whole 9 yards, all the stuff I don't fully understand or fully know. Through that process, through that grind, shout out to Waypoint, you can watch me on there. You get to learn other skills like maybe making a Patreon, maybe starting a merch line. Like if you're really into it,
Yeah.
I think it's a nice guideline on like, hey, here's how to do this. And then it's up to you to kind of really take that and run.
I think it's a great point that it is ultimately going to be on you to try and take it and run to the next level. And I think to what even like Jacob or Alice saying in the chat too, of it, you see people peter out. I think they go and they attack it, especially times right now where they might have more time accessible, and they immediately will drop off after maybe a few months or weeks or whatever it is, just to try and test the waters. And it pulls those people out because it's just not for them. They realize it's not meant for them. But there are so many more creators out there, be it on podcast platforms and YouTube live, Twitch streams as well, trying to grow and trying to, as you said, they want to be able to get to affiliate, to partner, to make this a full-time gig, to make this as what they want to do every single day. And I think that is really fascinating, being an older gent that is not on the TikTok. I can barely figure out my audio in OBS. It's terrifying. This is enough. I did it. This is enough for me though. That's enough. I need my scotch. But it's very fascinating for me to look at this stage in my life and look at content creation and going, that is a real plausible, attainable path
For sure.
for success, for a career. I'm interested to see where education goes with this, and what we teach the youngins down the road, because 5 years ago, it's not a school of practice. It's really, really, to me, coming to the forefront right now of, no, this is what you can do. And when you do see or hear and read articles on younger and younger kids that are streaming, they are on Twitch, they're Twitch streaming, they're growing, they're getting massive success for some of them. And then people obviously see that, and younger kids see that, and they follow suit and they try it. And I think you get almost the cyclical thing of, regardless of the age bracket, people find very good success at age 15 on Twitch, and then the 12-year-olds are watching them. They either get success or don't. But I'm really interested to see, and you made this point earlier about having content creation is an actual career. What do you think that needs to look like down the road? Because there is no formula. Does there need to be a formula, a structure to this, or education available? I know that there is a million YouTube videos on how to grow on YouTube, how to do this, but you know what I mean? Like there's no education, formal education, I should say.
I think we're getting there, right? I mean, like you have places like Full Sail that are specifically tailored to film and production, right? Which give you those skills too. If you wanted to do YouTube, things like that, you could. When I was in school, like college, right? New media wasn't really, and that's what they called it. They called it new media, which was basically just like their slang for YouTube, right? They didn't like it. I remember he wasn't, I thankfully never had him. He was the head of the broadcasting department, very old gentleman. I think he was there when my dad was there, right? My dad's 30 years older than I am. And in one of his books, he talked about how like new media is like a garbage form of media. And granted, this is all like, I don't remember word for word, so I may be a little.
What's the time right on this? Like what year ish?
Oh, this was like 2 or 3 years ago. I mean, like, so like it was not long time ago, right? And this was a book that was like
trash.
Right, that like I had for one of my classes, and it was because I had it because it was written by this dude.
Hold on, your dad. You just told me that your dad does like website design and all this technical stuff. You think is he not in the know of like YouTube?
Well, and I think he was primarily talking about the fact that he was, and granted, this is a little hazy, but I'm pretty sure he was kind of getting at like the fact that anyone can pick up a camera and make something or, put it up on YouTube is diminishing the visual medium, which I thought was bullshit. And it was very infuriating because like, that was like, we have Kevin Smith because of that very fact, right? Because he saw a film. It was a whole wave of film. The whole movement was that you could just pick up a camera and make it. And for better or worse, YouTube is the same beast. It's just different. It's just a new way to. I mean, hell, even TikTok is the same thing. Like
Yeah.
we are seeing huge people blow up on TikTok because they're good storytellers. That's all this is. All this is just different ways of storytelling. It's something human beings have been doing since they were like sitting around fire, grunting, or like banging in sticks into, or not sticks, but banging rocks
Clanging and banging
onto walls, making small rocks into bigger rocks to tell stories. That's all content creation is. It's just how you tell your story.
Right.
So when I had to sit in a class trying to learn the skills to do the thing I wanted to do that the head of the program was saying is bullshit was infuriating, right? It was just so frustrating. Since that person has left, I feel a lot of my professors, because I still talk to some of them, have made those strides into seeing like, hey, this is what content creation is. This is what media is now. We need to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
I work with a couple people, or I've worked with a couple people at a local like news site, right? And they shoot with their phones. And I went out and I was going to help him on a story and film some video and stuff. And he's like, oh, here's my iPhone that the company gave me to use to shoot and edit. And
Wow.
this guy who was like a professional journalist was sitting down, taking pictures, taking video, putting them together quickly on his phone on some whatever app they were using, and then uploading them to everyone. And they were getting thousands of views because it was a big site and everything. And that's when I was like, holy shit. Like, I was under the impression I had to have a nice camera and a good setup, and this guy is out on his phone. And that's when it clicked for me, right? Like, that's when it was like, oh yeah, the stuff in school didn't matter because it was being taught by someone, or at least kind of head by someone who didn't believe in what was going on. And I think that's changed. Well, like I said, my professors, I know they've moved to different stuff. Like I've got a professor who one of the on-field thing is shooting with your phone. So instead of having to give all these really big expensive cameras, it's like, hey, everyone's got a phone, go on your phone, shoot this story. Like that's a project they have now.
Yep.
That wouldn't have been a project before. So I think we're slowly seeing that transition for people understanding that, hey, this is just what it is now. This is new, whether you like it or not, because, it's not as high quality as grabbing a nice camera, right? Like my iPhone is not going to shoot as well as a Sony A6400. It's just not. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't have a story to tell or the content isn't there, right? It's just going to look different.
Yep.
So,
and you see that where it's, you see huge videos, whether it's TikTok or YouTube or even on Twitch, it's the storytelling. It's what's captivating for the audience, for that specific audience. Do you think that the education system, schools will dabble into looking at content creation from even a historical standpoint? Because we've gone through classes. If we've been in college or university, we've taken classes that have talked about radio and newspaper and media itself and journalism and how it's evolved over the years. And we've kind of hit this point, I think. I mean, I'm out of it now. Maybe all of this exists and I'm just in my bubble, but
right.
I remember taking those types of classes, and I feel like it got to a certain point, even when the internet was out and YouTube was there. We don't have that, not like a YouTube 101 or anything like that, but really examining content creators that are large enough and examining them, because we would examine, news anchors and people that were on TV that were big TV or channels, or, how things are broadcast and put together. Do you think that we're going to get to a point where we are kind of flipping it almost, where it's like that is so out because the next generation, next wave of kids, like my kids, they don't watch TV, Josh.
Right.
They're on YouTube and Netflix. They stream. When they see a commercial, when I had regular TV, or you visit your parents and then they turn it on and there's a commercial, 2 minutes of ads, they go, what is this? They legitimately say, Dad, what's this?
Right.
Where's the show? So I think of them going to school, and if they go down that path, I wonder if they will get to a point where in 15, 20 years, we're getting courses on YouTube, content creators, how production value is done, because there's amazing creators online of the tutorials that guys are saying in chat. Here's how to shoot this.
Yeah.
And people's content and quality is better than films in some ways. It's different. What do you think?
I think so, 100%. Like, I mean, I think we're already seeing that in ways of like esports, right? Like
Yes.
most colleges now have an esports team, right? I know when I was leaving, my college had like they had this big League of Legends team, and that was the esports team that was going around. ESPN is showing more esports events, kind of like what happened in the Game Awards, right? Like they said, hey, when every other sport had to shut down, like esports kept going on because it can. So I think even something like that is slowly making that change. I know there are esports classes at my old university. I know like Greg Miller has given talks at Mizzou about being a games journalist or what he does in the field of content creation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're definitely seeing that change happen now. Granted, like I think if you asked a college student, they would probably have some sort of class. I know one of the classes when I was leaving, the film genre was the MCU.
Cool.
So like there was a genre class where we'd be like, all right, we're this semester we're watching all these horror films and breaking them down. And so there was an MCU class, right? Or there was a whole class on Deadpool for breaking the fourth wall.
Oh, wow. Cool.
So I think you're slowly starting to see that things become more and more prevalent, especially as people like you and me who grew up with this, who want to be teaching it, are becoming the professors. We're becoming the people who are teaching the next generation of kids. So I really think it's going to be more and more prevalent as time goes on, especially like in a post-pandemic world where, content creation has been the number one thing because anyone can do it from home. It didn't have to stop. It adapted so fluidly. I just think, more and more people are becoming aware.
And I think more and more businesses some of them are realizing themselves, even out here in like Toronto, where a lot of the news right now is because obviously we have some shutdowns in some lockdown areas, but most people are back to work in some form or fashion. And what we're seeing from a lot of large companies, we'll even use Walmart as an example. I know people that have worked for larger end of Walmart, and they're like, we're moving our workforce to online as much as we can.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need these giant offices. Like, I think larger companies are realizing that we don't need the brick and mortar. We don't need the cubicles. We can trust people to be people and to be responsible for the most part, to work, to do their jobs. And some disagree, and some feel like, I need to go to work. I need to go to a place and I need to be there to do my hours. And I mean, it's totally cool. I just think that a lot of places are adopting new ways, and they're going, yeah, we can Zoom, we can go online. We don't need a 8-hour workday to prove we did an 8-hour workday.
Right.
We can get it all done in 4 hours and be more successful because people don't feel necessarily as strained by the clock and
for sure
the amount
more comfortable.
Of time. Yeah. They're way more comfortable. That's Matt's scenario. I just live in my nook here for
there you go.
24
it's a good nook
hours
to be
a day.
in.
It's amazing. There's toys around me, Josh.
And the so lights and the soundproofing, like I love your setup. It's so pretty. Like I wish my girlfriend saw I was on a podcast and saw like the back was like dirty and gross, and I didn't really know what to do with it. So like we came in and she put up the TV and the figures, and granted, it's not nearly as good as yours. So I mean, you have quite the nook, my friend. I've always been envious.
Thank you for appreciating my nook. Guys, I want to turn to you in the chat while we still have Josh for just a few more minutes, but if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. You guys can check out Josh on the Up and Comer podcast. You'll be able to find this episode on youtube.com/assemble show, because we will be posting that show up in the next 24 hours, I imagine. Why is Josh so awesome? That comes from Mr. Al. Nice fellow.
Oh, well, Al, I really think that comes down to personal preference. I think there's something about you that you perceive me to be awesome, whether it's my hair, my voice.
It is a little bit of both.
My honest opinions, the fact that I'm just going to be real with you, my love, my joy, any of those reasons that you may look and, for whatever reasons in your own life, you just kind of perceive me that way. Maybe those are the reasons.
Maybe that's it. Mr. Mitch George also says, how rewarding was it to finally record our episode together?
So that is a really funny story, and we didn't even fully talk about it on the podcast. So Mitch and I tried to, and Mitch, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was we had like 2 or 3 plans to record, and like it wasn't like I was too busy. It was like crazy shit kept happening. So the first day we were going to record, I came home and we got news that my girlfriend's grandfather passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So Mitch was super understanding. He's like, hey, I can't do it this week. And he super nice, totally moved it. So then the next week I had to go get tested for COVID and I was super sick. So I was like, all right, cool. Everything's, things are getting back together. We're going to try this. And then I was like, hey, I have to go get a COVID test. Like, I can't fucking speak. Like, it's going to be a while. So totally understood. And then finally, we were able to do it. Mitch is fantastic. He was so understanding, so willing to be flexible, and recorded a wonderful episode. So it was extremely rewarding to finally get to record our episode together.
How long is, I have a question. How long is your process typically? If you're going to edit and splice and dice one show that is, let's just say, an hour, what does your whole process look like?
So it depends on the quality of the recording, right? So I will go through and I will do some EQ, some compression. So I do, and this is something I was taught in school, right? So I do my negative EQ. So I take out the lows and the highs and kind of make everyone sound a little nice, right? I think the human voice doesn't hit any octave, like it doesn't hit any decibels lower than 90. I think it's 60 or 90. Those are the two numbers in my head. So I roll those off so that way if any background noise comes out, and then I do a high pass filter, which lets like high frequencies pass, right? High pass. So and that's when I kind of like cut stuff. I think I got that wrong, but anyways. I do the high pass filter, cut stuff. So like your noise echoing, your air conditioners, things in the background, I try to cut those out. And then I'll go through and like find specific frequencies that might be a little tingy, whether it's just mics, whether it's like too much electronics around each other. And then I'll pull those out. And then I do some compression, which kind of levels everything out essentially, right? So if someone's really inconsistent or like they get really loud and really quiet and their mic can't like kind of work with that, I try to make it all like squash it down so it's nice, consistent, so it's not blowing your eardrums out. And then I do what is additive EQ, where I kind of boost you and I make you sound all nice and sexy, right? So I take those low ends, right, and get you all nice
on my
and
podcast. No, you won't.
Exactly.
I will not edit this.
So that kind of depends. I've got those tweaked down to most everyone's like the basic mics set up, and then I just kind of adjust per guest. I've got my mic all set up. And then it kind of comes down to, like I said, the quality of the recording, right? So if there was a lot of like delay just because the internet connection, then it takes a really long time because I'm splicing and putting everything together. If like maybe there were a lot of ums or someone was a little more uncomfortable than I could have made them, then I'll try to clean that up a bit. So it really ranges. An hour-long podcast usually can take an hour to edit at the lowest. I've done one that took like 4 hours one time.
Wow.
That was complicated, but I wanted to make it sound as good as possible.
Very cool. Josh, one more thing before you leave and you exit on to go to bed or start your day or continue your whole life. What advice do you have for up and comers, for people that are beginning their journey on podcast platforms or YouTube or a combination of both and streaming? But what can you give any type of concise advice for people that are looking to get started or jump in or feel like, I kind of have some ideas in what I want to do?
I'm going to do two things. One, I'm going to answer a question here I saw from Bush League Gaming about the hair, because this is important. And this is something I had to look up and I didn't know how to do. So, but I will get to your serious question.
No, I don't have serious questions.
So first, thank you. I greatly appreciate it. My hair is something I eventually took care of. It used to be down to my shoulders when I was in high school. And I looked like a hippie. And then I started cutting my hair and I'm like, man, I actually look good. It was wonderful.
Just wavy.
Oh, no. So first, you wash your hair, right? That helps.
Okay. You hear that, Jacob? Wash your hair.
When you get out, you put a little bit of product in your hair, just a little bit. And I lied. Wash your hair, get out, towel dry it, then a little bit of product, right? And you'd be thinking, whoa, my hair's still wet. Why am I putting product in it? Oh, wait. It's supposed to add volume, I guess. I watched a YouTube video on it. That's why I'm telling you this. And then you take a like volumizer brush, which is like that weird brush that you probably saw your mom have as a kid.
Prickly one?
Yeah, like one? It's all plastic. There's no like cushion or anything on it. And it just has like the brush prongs sticking out, right?
Yeah.
And usually cylindrical. And your mom always had one. And you were like, this one looks like a sword. So you played with it a bunch and then like it broke. And you're like, oh shit, mom, I'm sorry I broke your volumizing brush. Maybe that one's a little specific. So you're doing that and it helps add the volume. And thanks to the stuff you put in your hair while it was a little wet, that kind of goes. Then you take a blow dryer, something I never did before. Take a blow dryer, blow dry it while you're brushing. So you brush to one side, it gets nice and dry. Then you brush to the other side, right? And you're thinking, whoa, I don't want my hair to go over the other side. But your hair's going to be like, I don't know what's going on. I'm just going to sit higher so it looks better, right? So you're brushing to the other side, and then you brush the back and make sure it's all like clean and dry. And then here's the kicker. You brush down, right? So it goes all like this. And you're like, whoa, I'm messing up my hair. What do I do? But this makes all this stuff dry, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's all dry. And then you brush it. And then you stick your head upside down and you blow dry your hair upside down whilst brushing.
You have a process.
I do have a process. I only do it when I'm going on for shows. I don't really do it for work. I'll wear a hat or I'm just too lazy. But that's how you really get, the volume and the big stuff. The hair in my Twitter profile picture, my roommate did for me, and he's really great with hair. My roommate at the time. So that one, I can't 100% agree, but like this general look is that process.
It's fantastic. I will let you in on a dirty little secret. Jacob does not have long hair. He has short hair. None of this would truly apply to him.
But
it will help somebody else.
Like hair knowledge, he may
it's
be
great
able to
hair
help
knowledge.
future people.
Maybe he wants to try something new. Maybe he's going for a new look down the road. He's trying to convince the wife, the girlfriend, of like maybe I'm just trying to spruce things up. I don't know.
Who knows?
Good for him.
Maybe
though.
get 4 hymns, get that thick long hair. You never know.
You never know. But you know what? It's good for him, and it'll work for him. It'll work for somebody.
So. Now to your more serious question.
Thanks, Jacob.
Not that that wasn't serious, because for someone that could have been
that could have been gold. I should just edit that one
anyone.
piece out and then just post that as a whole episode.
There you go. I'm all about it. I think to get into content creation, the big thing is like find something that works for you, right? Like obviously the easy answer is just do it. For me, right? Like I would love to do a video podcast. I think that's a little out of what my like current setup is able to handle.
Right.
And I know I struggle with just with getting things done, right? Sometimes I get really intimidated, or like I said earlier, I don't think it's good enough. Or sometimes, and you and I have discussed this before, Matt, sometimes I just get lazy and it's just things are too hard, right? And if I add more things on, I might not stick with it, or I might feel defeated, right?
Yep.
I know I can consistently put out a quality audio podcast every single week, more or less. So I've stuck with audio, right? Eventually, I would love to kind of grow and branch into more video podcasts, but also for myself, I am good at knowing my strengths and my weaknesses, right? Which like one of the things I say, like, I think other than a host, I think I'm a good producer, right? The technical terms, like I can edit, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I think my strength is hosting and producing. And I say that because I am good at finding people who complement my weaknesses, right? So that's a big thing, right? Realizing where you falter. Yes, it is nice to be a jack of all trades because then you can go anywhere and everywhere, but there's always going to be someone better than you, right? Yep. I know if I really need a video edited and I'm not going to have time to do it myself for the love, I know the people I can send it to, if, whether you pay them or they're helpful or friends or whatever, to get that done, right? I know, like for example, I did a podcast with Asa Green River over at Borderline Entertainment, youtube.com/Borderline Entertainment. And we did a reactions to the Game Awards. Granted, Asa had me host, which was phenomenal. And I loved doing that. Asa is a wonderful producer of the show, right? He knows the ones and twos. He knows how to make the camera work. He knows how to line up the B-roll. That stuff I just don't have the knowledge to do. So thanks to Asa, I was able to do a video podcast, host it like I'm really talented at, and then have him compliment me in the ways of doing all the stuff I don't know how to do or I'm not good at. So I'm able to branch out and grow more. Instead of trying to do it all myself, getting super overwhelmed, having it fall apart, not be able to do it consistently, and then just giving up, which happens, right? So if you can find one thing that you're really good at and you love doing and you can do it consistently, I recommend that. Start small. Don't go big. You don't have to be like every other show out there. Like for me, what a big inspiration of sticking with audio was listening to Ryan McCaffrey talk about that, his Tesla podcast, right? It's just audio because that's all he wants to do right now. It's a side project. That's what he feels comfortable doing. It doesn't have to be big. You don't need to be the next Kind of Funny or the next Assemble show or what have you. Just do you. Yeah. And whatever that means, as long as you're not hurting people, do it to the fullest extent you can.
I think it's great advice because I think so many people get intimidated and turned off. Very much what we've been talking about tonight of people dipping their toes into streaming podcasting and then getting turned off for a variety of reasons, realizing that it is not for them or feeling that it is overwhelmed and then nobody's watching, so screw it, it's not worth my time.
Right.
But I think you make an excellent point that find out what your strengths are and hone in on those and accentuate them, put them at the forefront, and if you can, find others, work with other people if you can. If it is something you want to grow into, like doing video
Right.
format or whatever, or the reverse and doing the audio side to clean it all up to make it better. Find those people and work with them, or try to learn that craft, but stick within kind of the zone in that pocket that's going to work, so that you can then grow from there.
And I also say, like, take breaks. Breaks are healthy.
Yeah.
If you can't put something out every single week, or even if it's once a month or it's every other week, or just say like, yo guys, I really got to chill for like a month, but I will be back. You may lose some steam in followers or listens, whatnot, but that's okay. Like, focus on you. Also, if you don't like doing it, that's okay too. I feel like a lot of people want to do content creation because it looks like a lot of fun, and it is, but it may not click with you. Don't feel bad about that. Don't feel like you should be doing something because everyone else is, or that you have to do something. No, if you want to do it, awesome. And if you don't want to do it, that's totally cool.
And you might,
maybe you just like being on someone's podcast because it's way easier.
Yeah.
That's be a podcast guest. Do that.
and you might find that even within the niches themselves, as they boil down to, there might be aspects of
100%.
the creation process that you really enjoy, which could be just you enjoy the production side of it. You enjoy editing, but you're like, I don't want to be on camera anymore. I want to be able to, but then you can outsource those services. If you're like, I'm actually really good at mixing. I'm really good at Premiere or Photoshop. And you're like, I am good at these things. These are my skill sets. And yeah, I like content creation, but not enough. Then utilize those skills and put them out there. Go on Fiverr, go on wherever, and try to promote yourself, market yourself that way. Work with other communities and other streaming platforms and other creators to say, do you need someone to make thumbnails? Do you need somebody to help you with audio? Like, and you can do it that way. I think it gives the people a lot of opportunity.
100%.
Josh, thank you very much for being on the show.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure.
But I really, really do appreciate it because, like I said at the beginning, we come full circle a little bit here. We are both growing, but I really, really do appreciate you coming on and being a guest to give us insights on yourself by able to flip the camera around a little bit and find out more about you, as well as just kind of your thoughts and insights on the industry and podcasting and the medium in general. It's been a lot of fun.
Happy to give them.
Josh, please come back again, unless you hate everything here. But
no, it was an absolute blast. Like I said, anytime you need me, you let me know and I will be there.
Absolutely. Guys, thank Josh for me. Please go check him out. Josh, please plug all of your things and all the stuff under the sun. Where can people find you and hit you up and your podcast, sir?
So the easiest place to find me is at Twitter at Josh Bittick. It's my first and last name. Bittick is Bittick. I'm from the Midwest, so all my T's sound like D's because I'm lazy and I slur. So for that, I apologize. You'll have to bear with me for being from the Midwest. So it's T's, not D's. High school, I got a lot of Bitticks. I do not bite dick. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just unfortunately or fortunately not my last name.
Okay.
So Twitter, my DMs are always open. So if you want to be on my podcast, I'd love to have you. Just shoot me a message. I will do my best to get you on the calendar. The podcast is the Up and Comer Podcast. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, that's where you can find it. I also do work with the good people over at Borderline Entertainment. So earlier I said you can check out all their videos at youtube.com/Borderline Entertainment. You can also check out borderlineentertainment.com and follow Borderline Entertainment on Twitter as well. They also have a Patreon and t-shirts. So you can do all of those wonderful, fantastic things.
Beautiful. Josh, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Not.
Really appreciate it. Take care, buddy.
You too.
See ya.
See ya.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and thank you so much to my guest, Josh Bittick, for joining us from the Up and Comer Podcast. We talked all things about content creation, podcasting, where the industry is going, and much, much more. That episode will be up on our YouTube channel tomorrow morning, so please stay tuned to that if you guys haven't been able to check it tonight live over on Twitch. Guys, on Wednesday, we actually have Al Bob 875. Al will be joining us on Wednesday's episode to talk all things Cyberpunk, the good, the bad, the ugly, his thoughts and impressions so far with that game. What does he think so far? A lot of the controversy surrounds CD Projekt Red right now, because that game, that is something else right now. So anyways, I'm very excited. We're going to have Al on the show on Wednesday. Thank you so much, guys, for checking us out. And as always, thank you for assembling with us. See ya.